Hello everybody. Uh, let's start. Let's start. Let's start. Toma un poquito de agua. Let's start with our demo. Let's start with our demo. In this demo, we are going to present P7 and a use case where you can define your custom P4 code to be emulated in each of the switches defined in the topology. For this example, we are going to run this simple topology with 4 switches and 4 hosts connected each of these hosts to one of the switches. Also, we are going to have all the links and the definition of the switch for the P7, and we are going to load a calculator P4 code in each of the switch where we are going to define using the tables the operation and the value that or start. Let's start with our demo. Basically, in this demo, what I'm going to show is how to use P7 to run your custom P4 code to be emulated in each of the devices that are part of the topology. For this example, we are going to use this topology with 4 switches and 4 servers, each of the server connected to one of the switches. I'm going to show you how to define this topology, how to define the links, and how to define the P4 code that is going to be emulated inside. For this example, we are going to present a simple code, a calculator code. What it's going to do is it's going to perform an operation, a simple operation, for instance, the addition between a given number that is going to be in the original header of the packet, and it's going to perform the operation between this value and a value that is going to be stored in one of the tables that is inside this code. So we are going to define this using the BFRT, and using this we are going to perform the calculation, and depending which host is the destination one and from which of the switches is passing by, the operation will be changed. Okay, so let's start. Basically, we have here all the terminals that we need to run our experiment. We need one terminal to compile around and run the switch. We are going to have 4 different terminals for each of the hosts. We are going to have a different terminal to send the information of the tables and the port configuration. And finally, one table to define the topology and everything related with the P7. So let's start checking our main script of P7. Basically, what we are going to define here are the topology, the P4 code, and how we are going to perform all the connectivities. An additional important part here that we need to define accordingly to our hardware are the recirculation ports. The logic that P7 used to create the emulation of these P4 codes inside each of the switches is by recirculations and using 2 different pipelines. So basically we are going to set one pipeline with our P7 P4 code and a different pipeline with the user-defined P4 code. So we need to define the correct recirculation ports to change from the P7 pipeline, to the user-defined pipeline, and to keep recirculating inside the P7 pipeline. So this is something that you can define accordingly to the hardware and the distribution that you have or your pipelines and ports. Then we define the devices, in this case the switches, the four switches that we have in the topology. We define the location of the P4 code, and now we can define all the hosts that we are going to have connected to the topology and all the related information like the name, the port ID, the speed, and well, basically all the configuration of the port of the host. In addition, we need to define all the links that we are going to have. So we are going to create all the 7 links that we have in this topology. And finally, we must define our custom information of our tables. These tables are related to our P4 code, the one that we are going to emulate inside. So this is something that we need to know, okay, which tables we have, which actions we have, and also the match that we are going to perform. So accordingly to our code, we are going to define all the important information of the table and all the tables that we are going to have, and also we are going to define the information per switch. So each of the emulated switches will have an specific tables and a specific information for this table. To identify to which switch we are going to add this information, we add this ID to set the corresponding switch. So as you can see, we are going to defining for all the different switch, different values to perform the match and the actions. And having this, we are going to have all the information to perform the correct actions in each of the P4 codes. So this is basically the main information that we need inside this P7 main script. Now we can run this main script to create the topology and to auto-generate all the necessary files. Okay, we are ready done. Now we set the files in the correct places and we are ready to go. Now we need to compile the created P4 codes. So basically now we have two different P4 codes. One that is the P7 P4 code and one that is the our predefined P4 code that we are going to use to emulate it. And why we need to recompile this code? Because we perform some modifications on this code to adapt to the logic of the P7 and to be able to integrate inside our topology and be able to recirculate the packets correctly to each of the pipelines depending on the hope that the packet is. So now we are going to compile the first our P7 P4 code. So this you can compile using your Barfoot SDE, and well, we just wait until the code is compiled. Okay, now we continue with the second P4 code, that is this P7 calc mod. We compile the code. These two codes are the ones that were generated when we created the topology right now. That's why we need to recompile. And finally, we can start running. To run this, what we are going to do is we are going to define the two P4 codes that we are going to run, the P7 code and the user-defined P4 code, and we are going to use a custom configuration file. This custom configuration file, let me show you. It contains how the pipelines are going to be mapped accordingly to each of the P4 programs. So here we need to define exactly the P7 P4 code and to which pipeline it corresponds. And also we need to define the custom P4 code and to which pipeline it corresponds. This should be done accordingly to our hardware and how we are going to distribute our ports and what we have connected to it. Well, we can now run our switch with our two P4 codes. Okay, now we need to set up the port and set up the tables information. So, okay, let's start with the tables information. So basically this is also a file that was generated by the P7 when we run the P7. So, well, okay, now all the information of the tables is set, and now we can uh, configure all the ports. So for this example, we have these 4 ports connected to 4 different servers, and now we can start testing if the logic of our topology is working. Okay, so for this test, we're going to perform some examples. For instance, we are going to send a packet from H1 to H4 with a first value that is going to be our in value, and then depending on of how we configure the tables inside, an operation is going to be performed, a different operation is going to be performed in each of the switches, and also with a different value. So for instance, if we send a packet from H1 to H4, we can see here a summary of the information that it was filled in the tables. We see that if the destination is H4 and the origin is H1, the operation that is going to be done is 1, that is the original value. In switch 1 is going to be added 10, in switch 2 is going to be added 11, then 12, and then 13. So this is going to happen in each of the switch. So at the end, the value that we set that was 1, at the end it will be 47 when we verified in H4. So let's test this if it's working. Okay, so now in host 4, what we need to do is to run our received code and set the VLAN associated uh, with this server to be able to capture all the packets that are arriving to this interface. Okay. Now in host 1, let's send. Okay, we set the destination IP. In this case for H4 is the 3. Then we set the interface from where the packet is going to be sent. Then in this case is VLAN 10. And then we set the initial value that for our example is 1. Okay, as we can say, the packet was sent, and at host 4 we received 47. So let's compare in our table here. We defined the H1 as origin, the H4 as destination, and the desired result was 47. So it's correct. And here we can see in each of the hopes what was happening. Now let's see that we want to send a packet from H4 to H3. So as you can see, the result is expected to be different since our destination is H3. So these are the values that are going to be added in each of the switches. So let's text. So now we need to run or receive a script here. Also, we need to set the interface where this port is associated. Okay. And now we are going to also send from the same interface, but the destination IP is going to be different since now is the number 7. Select send. Okay, the packet was sent, and the expected result 64 is correct. So now we are checking and we are verifying that depending of the origin and the destination, the operations that are going to be performed are going to be different. Then we can confirm that all the packets are passing by each of the hopes, each of the switches, and the actions that are going to be performed are the ones that we specified to each of the switches. So we have the same P4 code for each of the switches, but with a specific configuration for each of them. And so what is happening behind? So the main part of the P7 is going to be done in the links where we can add different metrics, different latency values, packet loss values, jitter values, and then each time that we need to perform the operation inside the switch, we send the packet to the other pipeline where the user-defined P4 code is. Then with it finished its processing, we return this packet to our P7 pipeline, and then it continues to the next link. And then it's going to be the same for each of the hopes inside our topology. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any doubt, please let me know.